Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. I'm Brad Harris, and each week I'm joined by some of my favorite husky, hairy, huggable homos and friends to review films either current or classic. And this week we are bringing you something very current. We're going to be reviewing Sonic the Hedgehog 2, the latest comedic outing involving the world's favorite speedy blue hedgehog. I don't know how my co-hosts necessarily feel about this movie. I have a little inkling about Jim. We try not to talk about these things, so I'm excited to get into the discussion with them. But before we can do that, we got to introduce them. So let's get down to brass tacks. I say tax because it was tax day a couple days ago, I guess.
It was.
I know. Thankfully, it's over. It's done. It's past us. Jim Pugliavago, how the hell are you? Welcome.
Tax day aside, I'm doing pretty good. Catching us in the middle of the work week as usual. And so, this is a good opportunity for us to put, the stresses of work behind us and focus on something we like to do to enjoy ourselves, which is movies and watching movies. So yeah, I'm looking forward to discussing this one with you, regardless of, how we all might feel about it. I'm sure it's going to be fun to talk about.
We need to do a Movie Bears podcast guided meditation, Jim, because that does sound very relaxing. Listen to the sound of my voice. Think about the movie you just saw over the weekend.
Be one with the end credits scene.
William Lindis, welcome to the show. How the heck are you?
Really good. It's we are past tax season, at least I am. It sounds like you guys are too. I filed on time, know what I'm getting back. I'm getting back and not having to pay, so life's good.
That's pretty good. Not everybody's in that situation.
Last year my taxes were damn near immaculate. At the end of it, I owed the IRS $1.
Wow.
Oh, I love that.
That was the closest I've ever been.
Did you send it to him in pennies?
I should have, right?
That would have been amazing. Well, guys, welcome to the show. So glad to have you here this evening. This is definitely a big highlight of my week for sure when we get together and chat movies, whether they be really good, really bad, or somewhere in between. We are going to be talking about Sonic the Hedgehog 2, folks. Spoiler free for about 15 minutes, probably. And then we'll give you a fair warning before we open things up to spoilers and take you there. So if you haven't seen Sonic 2 yet and you're like, yeah, I'm kind of on the fence, I want to hear what someone else thinks, feel free, hang out with us. We will not spoil you. That is our MBP guarantee. It sounds like a hashtag in the making, guys. I don't know.
The hashtag MBP guarantee.
MBP guarantee.
I'd have to spell guarantee
I'm putting
properly
that
each
in
time. And while I know how to spell it, like if you ask me to spell it out, my thumbs are so fucking fat. I would never correctly get it and not have to like, I got to do it.
Okay.
But still good. It's good.
Put that in the next tweet.
There you go, Jim.
Yeah, do it in the next tweet. Jim, you're handling tweets. You can do it. Your thumbs aren't these like beastly things.
Goodness.
The next trending hashtag. MBP guarantee.
I'm sure it will.
Right next to Elon Musk and, whoever else is trending.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, Jim, Will, are you fellas ready to go fast and talk Sonic 2?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, then here we go, everybody. Our discussion of Sonic the Hedgehog 2. All right, Jim, if you don't mind, give us a little bit of brief setup on this one for folks who may be unfamiliar or just need reminding, and let us know your initial thoughts on the movie. What did you think?
Sure. We have Sonic the Hedgehog 2, which is 2 years from 2 years after the original Sonic the Hedgehog movie that we went and saw and we reviewed on this very podcast. And I think we were generally all favorable about that movie back then, if I remember right, to the most degree. So I'll go ahead and read the this plot synopsis. Hopefully it doesn't have too many spoilers. I don't think it has spoilers in it, but we'll see. If so, you guys can yell at me and I'll edit it out.
Jim,
Yeah.
I hate to interrupt you. Can you read through Jordy's head? I see his ear tips.
Yes, he's off to the side. I can't see you, but I can see what I'm reading.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, here we go. The world's favorite blue hedgehog is back for a next level adventure in Sonic the Hedgehog 2. After settling in Green Hills, Sonic is eager to prove he has what it takes to be a true hero. His test comes when Dr. Robotnik returns, this time with a new partner, Knuckles, in search for an emerald that has the power to destroy civilizations. Sonic teams up with his own sidekick, Tails, and together they embark on a globe-trotting journey to find the emerald before it falls into the wrong hands. So there we go. There's your description of the general plot of Sonic the Hedgehog 2. And yeah, we went to the theater to see this one. I'm not even sure if it's streaming or if it's just theaters, but we did see it. We saw it at a matinee, which was cool because I think there were a lot of kids in the audience, several kids. And the kids seemed to love it, at least in our screening, as it played. There was a kid behind us who was like narrating the whole way. Like every character that came up on screen, he's like, it's Tails, blah, 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 and he's having a blast, which was great. And I think that's what this movie is all about. This is really just light popcorn, family action, video gamey type movie. Also, I think it's been pretty well received by most people. Unfortunately, I kind of fall on the weird side of this one. I don't know if it was a mood or what, but this one didn't land for me. I did like the first one to a large degree, and I think I've kind of put my finger on what that is. I know that this movie is very plot driven in terms of like it's got its villain, which we've had the same villain in the first movie. It brings in a couple of new characters, which is great. But it's here's the characters, they're chasing the villain, they're trying to save the world. This is, and I won't spoil anything else. We'll get into that in spoilers. But I think what I liked about the first movie was the relationship between Sonic and I forget the character's name, played by James Marsden here. Tom Wachowski, right? I liked the relationship that developed. It's kind of a meet cute, developing relationship. They go on kind of mild spoilers for the first movie. They go on kind of a road trip, and it's kind of a road movie for part of it, which I really liked. This movie is definitely much more plot point A, B, C, D, to its conclusion. And I just didn't like it as much. It felt old. I thought the humans that were in this movie, other than Dr. Robotnik, I assume he's human. I guess. I don't know. I think he is. Or is he alien? I'm not sure. But anyway, the human characters in this movie do really take a backseat to our cartoon, our Sonic characters, which is fine. Like I said, for a lot of audiences, they're going to love that stuff. I don't know. Maybe my expectations were set too high, and I put that on myself. But I did not. I'm going to recommend this to video game Sonic fans, families with children. Children will probably love this. We know some in the theater definitely loved it. But otherwise, I can't recommend it. It didn't really work all that well for me. I felt at the end it was kind of a slog for not quite 2 hours, but almost 2 hours.
So it's a conditional recommend, and only under those.
Yeah, a conditional, characterized recommend. That's right, categorized.
Or even like an unrecommend, but with exceptions or power. Yeah.
and I feel weird because I think I really do fall in the minority with this movie. I just didn't just vibe with its cuteness. It's got a lot of stuff in here that we'll talk about in spoilers that I was just shaking my head like, why is this even in the movie? I don't understand.
All right. Well, we'll put a pin in that for now. Definitely interested to hear what those things are and have that discussion. But before we get to our spoiler section, let's go to Will. Will, what did you think of this movie?
Jim, you're heartless. This is just a Sonic the Hedgehog movie,
I
man.
know.
It's
I know.
just,
It's
it's
okay,
just,
Will.
yeah,
Lay it
no,
on me. I'm
yeah,
cool.
okay,
I
I
totally
guess,
expect it.
yeah. But yeah, it's not very good. I'm with you, Jim. And let me talk a little bit about why. The first one was a perfectly fine movie. It had stuff that worked, had stuff that didn't. It exceeded expectations, especially after that weird
Oh yeah.
redesign phase, which was
Mhm.
cool. They listened to the fans and made adjustments on the fly and leaned into it. Cool stuff. Here, there's stuff that really works. There is this thematic, like, relationship you mentioned between Sonic and Tom that gets defined in sort of like a new way here that we don't often see in these types of movies when you have like the animal character who's like hanging out with the human character. That's really cool. Knuckles is actually the highlight of this movie for me. I think that the jokes that come from his like fish out of waterness on Earth is the stuff that lands the best. And Tails was also there. No, Tails was fun. I like the Tails character a lot. There's just some stuff in here that does not work enough so that it mostly leads me to the negative. I don't know what it was about the Robotnik character in this one, but I thought he was fun or at least tolerable in the first one. He was very grating in this one to me. Like all of his jokes felt like that. Oh yeah, style of stuff you sometimes see in kids movies. That's not funny, but it's designed to just be sort of like loud and exciting, and that's enough. I mean, I think we were joking beforehand, but like any movie that has like uses the punchline as Dr. Robotnik flosses, it loses a little something for me. The floss dance. So he was a big negative for me. And there's this whole section. We'll talk about what it is in spoilers, but there's a whole section in the very middle of this movie where the movie just decides to tell a different story for a bit, and it doesn't work. It's not funny. It's not characters that I like was excited to follow. I wanted to stay with like the kind of the main characters and the main action, and instead I just had to trudge through like a weird subplot that went absolutely nowhere for me. So mostly an unrecommend for me. I think there are people. Look, I also fully admit, I'm a 40-year-old dude who, like, yeah, I grew up with Sonic the Hedgehog, but these movies are not necessarily for people that grew up with them. These are for people who, have their kids and want something to entertain their kids. You might have a better experience with it than me, but yeah, for me, this was actually a downgrade from the first one. I think, and that's a shame. That's a shame for me. So yeah, light pass.
Sequelitis, Will.
Yeah, sequelitis.
All right. Well, that's two unrecommends, it sounds like, so far. Will, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. Jim, you too. I guess I'll weigh in and just say that I'm maybe a little more positive than you guys are, but not by much. I think, Will, you make a really important point. That is for us to recognize that we are not necessarily the main audience for this film. Jim, you mentioned the kids earlier and how good of a time they were having
Yeah.
while you were in the bathroom after the movie. Like I was watching the kids hanging out with while their
That
parents
can
were in
get
the
you
bathroom.
arrested, by the way. Just saying.
And the kids were just so happy about this movie and they were pretending to be Sonic. One kid got on the ground and rolled, and he was like, "Gotta go fast," and it was super cute. And I think it's great that kids are enjoying this movie as much as they are. So I will just come out and say, Jim, your recommendation for people with kids probably is spot on. Those are going to be great folks to go see this movie, stream it when it's available. As someone who does not have children, however, I think my experience was a little bit different. I grew up with Sonic like you did, Will. I love the Sonic video games, even the Sonic snowboarding games, which, were not everybody's cup of tea. Sonic is just a fun character. I've always had a love-hate relationship with Tails. Sometimes Tails is great. Sometimes I want to throttle Tails. Um, So going into this movie, I'm like, all right, Sonic and Tails, what's this going to be? And I didn't hate Tails in this movie, which is good. I thought Tails brought some good partnership to the character. I actually liked the Sonic and Tails stuff more than I liked the Sonic and Tom stuff. If you could take all of the humans in this movie, aside from Robotnik, and just throw them out and just say, we don't need you. We'll come back to you some other day. I think it would be just fine. The human stuff was easily the low point here for me. And yeah, that weird side thing that happens that we'll talk about in spoilers just left me scratching my head. And I'm like, can we get back to the movie, please? Please, that'd be great. Thanks. Um, I absolutely loved Idris Elba as Knuckles here. Far and away the standout for this movie. Loved the character, loved the voice acting for Knuckles. Jim Carrey and Dr. Robotnik, I have a problem with. Will, you mentioned the floss dancing and the like, yeah, like kind of way of approaching this character. Um, I may be misremembering, but I think Robotnik did a lot of that in the games too. And so while I want to say it's an affectation of like newer kids animation and kind of how they do things, I remember Robotnik doing stupid dances and when he was mad, he would do stupid animations and to Jim Carrey's credit, I think he's playing the version of this character that they think is going to appeal most to kids today, and maybe good on him for doing that because the kids seem to enjoy his performance. So I don't want to rag on him too hard, but man, oh man, did I find him so annoying in this movie for me personally. I just cringed every time he was on screen, and that's unfortunate for your big bad villain, to kind of cause that reaction. But again, I'm not necessarily the target audience for this. So, this is definitely a recommend for me if there's nothing else that you want to see in theaters right now and you want to get out and see something that might potentially be fun. This could potentially be it. But I mean, honestly, if you watch this on like TBS in 6 months, I think you'd be fine. But it's up to you. Mileage varies.
Yeah, I don't know what it is with some of these video game based movies. And I know this is, it's the movie itself is not like heavily gamified, but it is based, I guess, on the exploits of the character from the game. They could just never seem to get it right. The translation from game to screen is something, at least for me, doesn't really translate. But then again, I'm not a gamer, so I'm probably not the best one to judge. And as far as Robotnik and Jim Carrey, hey, Jim Carrey is still a great presence on the screen. I like to watch that guy. Even I don't know, even as rumors swirl that he's done his last movie or whatever. I think I was reading something about that. I hope not. I really like to see him do something, semi-serious again, like the Eternal Sunshine or something like that. I mean, totally way different than this. But in this performance, yeah, I think he's going for that kind of, he's the irritating villain, right? Obviously he's the icon of mustache twirling villain. And I think, yeah, that does get on our nerves a little bit, and but I think that's what the fans and the kids kind of expect from him. So I can't harsh his performance that much because I think he does embody the character, to at least from what I know.
Oh yeah. I don't. There's nothing against Jim Carrey. When you cast Jim Carrey in a kids movie, you expect to get Jim Carrey doing Jim Carrey stuff, and that's what we saw here. I mean, this is and that's not a knock on his acting chops. This is a guy who has done a lot of different things, but he has done a lot of kids movies. Think about like The Grinch. Think about while not kids movies, The Mask, and Ace Ventura. While not kids movies, like they definitely are like play that sort of like elastic human being that he is, and I think that that's what he brings to this role. I just think for me it was more the film's fault for leaning so heavily on that and not enough on, I guess, some of the other, like it's almost like they didn't have faith in the villain to be menacing or interesting on its own without leaning into like the eccentricity stuff. Like I felt like we never got anything aside from the
Yeah, I was almost afraid. It was almost like the writers were afraid to give that character a wrinkle in this movie. You know what I mean? Give him a wrinkle, like maybe a head fake, like, oh, he's gonna have this moment where he's like seeing good and turning to the good side and being nice, but then all of a sudden has a double reversal and goes twice the other. Some kind of a character wrinkle. It just seemed tired, kind of the same old for me. And yes, I did like the Knuckles character. Idris Elba's voice was great on that character. And like I think he was probably the most interesting character in the movie. Knuckles, but
and the most compelling, like even though it was obviously secondary to like what Sonic had in this, because it's a Sonic movie, right? I do think that he had the most compelling story arc. Like you got to see where they were at, what he learned going through the experience, where he ended up, and all of it felt consistent. And any of the turning points and things, like it all feels earned, right? That's what you want from like a little like from a character's narrative across a movie. Sonic had a little bit of that too. It was just more punctuated by some other stuff. Tails had a little bit of that too. But he was definitely there more in service of Sonic's story, which is fine. Just fine. Visuals were fun. I think it's, this is a movie that is very CGI heavy. And one of the things I appreciate about it, we mentioned like the history of the first one, right? Like the really terrible design, the redesign and all of that. Well, part of that redesign let it become a little more cartoony. And because of that, we get a little bit more of like the squash pole style, like animation here. It's not so realistic. The characters can't do a little bit of like Looney Tunes adjacent action, right? And I think that works here. It doesn't feel so bizarre that it is like a Looney Tunes like Space Jam or something like that, but it does give the characters
Sonic Jam.
Yeah but because the characters are obviously animated characters and they get to use those obviously animated designs, they're allowed to have expressions that can be big enough to show like these big like emotions that they're experiencing. So I think the animation is to this movie's credit. It looks really good when those characters are doing stuff, especially the action sequences. I think for the most part are pretty clear, easy to see what's going on. There's a kinetic energy to it. It didn't rely on like a billion like slow motion time in a bottle sequences, which I think can sometimes get annoying in these speedster things.
Is that what we're calling them now? Time in a bottle sequences?
Yeah.
Goes back to the original.
Yeah. So, there's some good stuff in here, definitely, but it's just like the bad stuff really, really drags you down.
We're going to get to that. I have a feeling.
Yeah, I think we've reached that point where we probably should just make the jump to spoilers so we can really get into the meat and potatoes of our discussion. Jim, would you agree?
I do, although before we go to spoilers, I think there's a good comment that would probably be good.
Yeah, so going back to Jim Carrey, I was actually gonna bring that up in spoilers, but we can. Yeah, so maybe we'll save that one for spoilers if we're
sounds good.
That. Yeah. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and go into our spoiler section for Sonic the Hedgehog 2. If you haven't seen the movie yet and you value your ignorance of the plot, now's your time. Go ahead, step away for 20 minutes and 20 seconds, and then come on back for our plug section, where we put things on your radar we think you might enjoy. You don't want to miss that. If you're listening through the magic of digital tape delay, use the show's time index in the show notes to go ahead and skip around as needed. Do your thing, depending on your need. But I'm done rambling. Spoilers are officially fair game. And I'd like to go back to Jim Carrey. So we had a comment, as Will mentioned before the spoiler jump, from James. Hey, James, welcome. Good to see you here. He says, I liked it, but my kids said that they saw Jim Carrey acting like the Grinch who stole Christmas. And now that we can kind of get into spoilers, maybe we can talk a little more in depth about the Jim Carrey stuff here. Do you guys feel like he was channeling a lot of the Grinch in this movie when he was like dancing with the emerald and all the other crazy stuff he was doing?
I did. But
I think he's Will, go ahead. I think he's just channeling his Jim Carrey shtick. You know what I mean? He's done this in several movies, or at least a version of it, right? And it's what we know of his zany comedic style. I mean, he did it. He did some of it in as the Grinch, obviously, but I think with the Grinch, he's behind makeup and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
or much more makeup, like a masky kind of face. But yeah, I can see that. But instead of the Grinch Who Stole Christmas, you can put in several other characters. The one from The Mask. I probably could think of 3 more.
So it's not that he's exactly channeling the Grinch as much as I did. I walked when I got out of it, I was thinking very similarly. Like, this felt a lot like the Grinch performance, and I had to think about, well, why is that? And I think it's because there are certain movies where Jim Carrey turns his the physicality of his comedy and the zaniness of his comedy up to whatever the 10 out of 10 on the Jim Carrey meter is. And he does that in The Grinch. He does that here. He does that in Ace Ventura. He does that in The Mask. He does that in some of those more when you think about Jim Carrey doing the whitey then, whatever, it's those types of performances, right? I like Jim Carrey better. This is very subjective. This is just my tastes. I like him when he's running at about a 6 or a 7, not turned down to a 1 necessarily. I've seen him in some movies that were not comedic and they don't work as well. Even Eternal Sunshine, he plays a guy who has some just charisma and charm that ekes through. But yeah, the first Sonic the Hedgehog movie, I think, was probably him running at about an 8 or so. And that felt like it was just more interesting to me because when everything is wacky, nothing is wacky, I guess. Right. I needed a little bit more of like layers, even if it's just peeling back just a little bit here. So yeah, James, that's a good comment. I saw the same thing. Your kids I better watch out. Your kids might be gunning for my seat on the show, huh?
It's interesting. One of the reasons I wanted to save this for spoilers was there's two versions of the Robotnik character in this film. There's the really turned up to 11, wacky, zany, floss dancing Robotnik, and then there's the very cold, menacing, angry Robotnik. There's a scene in the film toward the end where Robotnik is in charge of a giant robot, and there are moments where Sonic and friends are trying to fuck the robot up, where Robotnik is just this cold, angry, calculating villain, and he's like, oh, I'm gonna get you, that's not gonna work, I'm not gonna let you keep me down. And I actually really like that version of Robotnik. I wish that we had seen more of that in the character earlier in this movie, and even in the last movie. Thinking back to the games, Robotnik works best for me when he's super angry at Sonic to the point of his head blowing up and exploding. And it's not the zany jokes or the crazy hand motions necessarily. It's the anger that this big crazy fat guy has for a little blue hedgehog that you just can't wrap your head around. So definitely prefer that version of Dr. Robotnik. But as Jim mentioned, if Jim Carrey is truly out of acting, then I don't think we're going to get Robotnik in a third movie. So what are we going to do then?
Oh, I don't. Maybe there'll have to be another villain that'll be showing up. I don't know. Any any hot topics that might come to mind, Brad?
How could they introduce a new villain? Could it be that really horrible stinger at the end? Maybe.
Can you remind me of that? Because I've totally forgotten it. I really seriously don't remember. I remember there was an after credit scene, but I don't remember anything about it other than my eyes rolling to the back of my head.
The big deal with the Stinger is we got our first glimpse of a character who is known as Shadow the Hedgehog. And he's sort of like he's sort of like Hot Topic Sonic, like he's sort of like black and red and sort of like, I don't know, like what like a 13-year-old would think is edgy, that like, and then design that's what Shadow looks like. And yeah, so that's what we're gonna have in the next one.
Is he a villainous type of
I'll
Sonic?
be honest. My knowledge of Sonic goes like I know who Sonic and Tails and Knuckles were. That's about the games that I've played. I am only aware that Shadow exists.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure he's a bad guy, but I could be wrong. I mean, he could be into like gardening and like chamomile tea for all I fucking know, but I think that's not the case.
Yeah, or it could be one of those. Go ahead, babe. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to explain. So my knowledge is not like super great either, but if I recall, Shadow the Hedgehog is one of these characters that like sometimes is a baddie and sometimes is a goodie. He's kind of like an anti-hero character. So I think that he may show up as kind of a rival for Sonic maybe in the next movie. But I'm wondering if there's going to be another big bad that pops up that maybe they team up to go against. But that would be awfully like the plot of the second movie, which is why I kind of scratched my head a little bit when Shadow showed up. Unless they have Shadow be purely the villain for the next movie and then give Shadow a redemption arc. If, oh my God, there's a fourth movie.
In the fourth movie. And then in the fifth movie, it could be a snowboarding tournament.
Right.
I think we're going to see...
we did have snowboarding.
We did have snowboarding.
That was really, I'll be honest, as much as that scene maybe dragged on a little longer than it needed to, I did chuckle when they started snowboarding, going like, okay, yeah, you know, well played. Yep. That's a good reference.
That one shushed right over my head.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. But they could always bring Carrie back as Robotnik, is kind of like they did with Tony Soprano's mom in The Sopranos. You know what I mean? Like
digital replacement.
Yeah, just do a digital replacement. Just super cut all his jokes and barbs together, and you know.
You know what I wouldn't hate is if in the next one, if they have to bring back Robotnik, you know, like you just. Something happens to him. I don't know what that is. You know, something else happens to him. And he's like the kind of more animated, like egg-shaped guy. Like
or he's in a robot. He's like just the voice
or he's just in a robot the whole time. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Mecha Robotnik.
Are we gonna get to the real problem with this movie?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, let's have that discussion. I've been waiting.
Yeah, we haven't even touched on it yet. So there's a whole I know you guys are going to have to re-explain after I explain, but there's a whole relationship arc in this movie between two new characters, I think.
They're not both new. One of them was
the sister was from the first movie.
Yeah, the sister's in the first one.
Okay. And it's, what's her name? Is it Rachel? Rachel and Randall? Are those the two characters? So. Who
Rachel, yes, Shamar Moore,
Randall, yeah, okay, yeah, and somehow they end up, it's on again, off again, if I remember right, and then there's a big wedding trip and wedding thing happening in I don't know, Hawaii or somewhere, and I don't remember much else other than like, why are we watching this? Like it seemed to have nothing at all to do with the movie. Like it could have easily been, it would have been the easiest job in the world for an editor to remove that without affecting any of the movie. It's like the easiest Jenga move ever. You know,
it's not even that like the wedding was a side thing. Like you could have the wedding be a side thing, a reason, you know, that some of the characters go off and are not there with Sonic. Right. I don't even have a problem with them like having Tom take the phone call and, you know, having the the ring open and all the snow come out. That was kind of crazy. That was kind of fun.
That's cute. Yeah.
My problem was the fucking like Ocean's 11 like heist thing that it turned into. And all the wacky zaniness on golf carts. And I mean, it was just purely ridiculous, unnecessary. It had nothing to do with Sonic or the story. It was, ugh.
Just to set it up a little bit, like, so up until now, it's really been Robotnik and Knuckles versus Sonic and Tails in this quest to get this emerald, which would give a bunch of crazy, like, Super Saiyan powers.
Yeah, the most basic plot you could have for one.
But it's effective, you know. Like if you think about like if you think about like a lot of the more effective like adventure movies where it's like some ancient, like you think like National Treasure or Uncharted or any of those like movie Tomb Raider, any of
or any Avengers movie
looking for like no, I'm going for a specific thing here, like where it's basically like two groups that are both like in a race up the mountain to get the one historical object, right? It feels like that type of adventure movie, right? You take an aside here, and then now you have this side where the sister-in-law is getting married to a guy, which is again fine, like you mentioned, Brad, but he's actually a secret government agent, and the whole thing was secretly a sting so they could snag Sonic and capture Sonic, which is weird because they know where he lives, because it's like which is back in Green Hills, so they had to do this elaborate thing to lure him to a city, to a state that he's not even invited to. And then like a bunch of adventure stuff happens there, but it goes nowhere. I think it's primarily there. I think the government like agent stuff is probably going to be more a part of like the next one, because of like all the stuff we saw. Yeah. So I think that's, I mean, I think it's world building. I think it's setting stuff up. Right. But man, it was like a wet fart in this movie. Like it, like any of the momentum that you did have going for this thing, which were real stakes, by the time that right before that scene, Sonic just got his ass kicked by Knuckles. Dr. Robotnik is stronger than he's been before. Tails got blasted on the side of the mountain. It's pretty, like, it's not necessarily like an all is lost moment, but they struggled there. And now they just have to fight like a weaker set of human villains for a little bit before they get ready for another set of fight. I don't know. It's just bad writing, bad pacing. That did not need to go there. It didn't add anything. I didn't care about those characters. It didn't help me learn anything about Sonic. It didn't help me learn anything about Tom. I don't know. It was a waste of time.
So one of our listeners, Will, is kind of chiming in here, and funny enough, his name is also Will. He goes by D Geek Will on YouTube. By the way, he has some pretty phenomenal reviews. You should check him out. But Will says the focus on the wedding section was like running into a brick wall for me, and I think that's such an apt way to put this because it really brings the whole fucking movie to a screeching halt at that point, and then. You almost have to like climb over, brick by brick by brick, put in your time. And once you get there, we get back to the main thrust of what's going on. Jim, to your comment earlier, I absolutely agree with you. They could have cut that whole section after like the snow coming out of the ring and ruining the wedding out. And I think it would have been just fine.
Yeah.
And then maybe jump to the light in the sky.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe you put in a scene like if you want to play up the Sonic and Tom relationship, maybe the snow thing happens, and then maybe Tom chews Sonic out. Like, hey, it was really important for me to do this, and you ruined this. And maybe they have a bit of a falling out, which they then have to like patch up by the end of the movie. But then Sonic says, I've got to take responsibility for some other things, and he runs across the ocean to go do the light in the sky stuff. You could have skipped all of that stuff and still gotten some emotional payoff out of that scene. But instead we got like, I mean, to be fair, Shamar Moore is an incredibly attractive human being. So, I mean, I totally, I get it. But also, I don't know. I can just look at pictures on the internet. I don't necessarily need him in Sonic.
Yeah.
What's his background? Is he like an entertainer, or is he an actor in some way? Will, I don't know where he's coming from.
Yeah, he's an actor and model. I mean, he's been doing stuff for like since the 90s, like kind of late 90s. I remember he was in just like a lot of shows, like he would show up in for like an episode or two, but then he was in oh my gosh, Diary of a Mad Black Woman. He was in that, and I think a few other things too. But and it's just one of those guys who, like, he would always sort of like show up in the pop culture thing, sort of like I don't know a good example similar to him. But anyway, he's known for being an attractive human being. Music videos, you know, like he was sort of like, you know how like for a while, like I don't know if this reference will go over with anyone, but you could think of someone like Cindy Crawford and immediately think like that was kind of like the go-to that people would think of, like, oh, who's an attractive woman? Like, oh, like Cindy Crawford, you know, like a model or something like that. I think Shamar Moore is sort of like of that same ilk too. Like he would just show up in maybe not like big roles, but just little things, and you'd always be aware of just how attractive he is.
So as this conversation starts to draw to a close, I have a question for you fellas. Are you interested in more movies out of this Sonic franchise after this second outing?
I'm not. I mean, I wasn't left like wanting more. I wasn't left excited about what's next. I didn't hate what I saw. Again, I was more on the negative than on the positive, but you know, this wasn't like a shit show. But I get to the end and I see the Sonic's, the Shadow Stinger, and I think about kind of how I felt with like the Dr. Robotnik stuff, and I don't know, like I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah, and I'm forever an optimist, right? I mean, this movie didn't break me like on Sonic. I know video game movies generally suck, and that's okay, but there's always room for them to like do something, throw something in there and surprise me. But if they churn out another one just like this, without, you know, with pretty weak writing, I think, and you know, having some good characters but not really doing much characterization of them, like I don't think I would be in for that. But like I said, I'm an optimist, so they could do something to surprise me and turn me around.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm at too. Like, especially if Carrie is out and we're not going to have the crazy Robotnik stuff. I'm a little interested by the Shadow stuff. I like the Shadow character. I think the first movie was a win for me. The second movie was not a win for me. So maybe the third will be the deciding factor on where I am with this franchise. But Will, kind of to your point, it is a little hard for me to hang in for a third movie to see how it shakes out, just because of where I was with this movie. So totally get where you're coming from.
You know what I would be down for, and they would never do this, but I don't know. What if the third one, they just ditched all the human stuff entirely and just made the entire movie animated?
That'd be amazing. I would watch the shit
I
out
would
of
watch
that.
that. I would watch that. Like, I feel like there's a lot that could happen there. Like, they could continue the story, use the same basic animation style.
Yeah, especially if they had. If almost wish they had kind of had a falling out, like if Tom and Sonic and them had kind of had a falling out and drifted apart, and then they had to do the third movie, and then maybe there could be some kind of like redemption arc, like, you know, toward in that third movie where Tom comes back and, you know, they kind of patch things up a little bit in a sort of emotional way. Like, I think, I don't know. I watch movies a lot for, you know, movies that hit emotional chords generally are stronger for me. This movie didn't really have any of that, and therefore it felt a little flat. And you know, if they could build some of that into a third movie, I might be on board. I mean, who am I kidding? We're probably, if there's a third movie, I'm sure we're probably going to watch it anyway.
I mean, yeah. I mean, that's what it, you know, we talk about movies on the show, you know, and then sometimes they're fun ones, sometimes they're not, and You know, sometimes we follow the we followed at least a few franchises into the dirt, over the course of the last decade, so hopefully that's not what happens to Sonic, but you never know.
Indeed. Indeed. All right. Well, I think that brings us to a wrap on Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Some good discussion, gentlemen. Thank you for weighing in with your viewpoints. Listeners, thanks for weighing in with yours. Just because we're done with this conversation, though, doesn't mean the conversation has fully ended. If you didn't get a chance to weigh in live with your thoughts, feel free to drop those to us on Twitter at MB Podcast. Let us know what you thought of Sonic, and we can have some conversation there. But guys, let's move on to some plugs. That part of the show where we put things on people's radars we think they might enjoy based on your own enjoyment of these things. Will, if you don't mind, why don't you go first? What have you got to plug this week?
It's rough because I've watched a few movies, in between, surprisingly, but they've all been kind of bad. So
nothing you'd plug.
So it's rough to plug that. So I think what I'd rather plug is just something that I'll be putting out in written form later, and we might be talking about soon. We'll figure that out between. But the new there's a new movie out called The Northman, and it's the new movie by Robert Eggers, who did The Witch and did The Lighthouse. And I had a chance to do an earlier screening of that, and I've got a written review coming up that'll be published through our site this Friday. So take a peek at that. That should be a fun thing for you to look forward to. So watch the movie if it comes out in an area near you this weekend. Read the review. Follow up with us if we talk about it on an upcoming episode, possibly. I'll leave it there. So it's not going to necessarily be a plug of the thing, but it's going to be a plug of the review of the thing.
All right. Nice. Excellent. Very cool. Well, Will, thank you so much. As always, enjoy reading your reviews. However, I think we are going to be talking about this movie next week, so please don't be offended. I try to go into movies blind. I will probably wait to read your review.
Read it Wednesday, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I will read it, though, I promise, because I love your work. Jim, what have you got to plug this week?
I'm actually saying I'm in the same boat as you, Will. I watched a few things, none of which I would necessarily plug here. We watched a new Fantastic Beasts movie. I don't know if we'll ever get to that, but who knows? Maybe it'll be a future plug. I watched a 1964 movie with Cary Grant called Father Goose, which was a World War II kind of movie. But the thing I want to plug is a series, a new series on HBO Plus called Minx, M-I-N-X. And this is a kind of a period piece show. I'll read the description. In 1970s Los Angeles, and I love stuff about the 70s. I mean, we talked about Licorice Pizza and, stuff like that. An earnest young feminist joins forces with a low-rent publisher to create the first erotic magazine for women. So this is a kind of, think of it as sort of a cross-up between Boogie Nights and 9 to 5. It's got the sensibilities of like 9 to 5, where it's central themes around women's empowerment through the 70s during what was called the women's lib movement, and the central character is a strong, intelligent woman who has ideas about wanting to empower other women through a magazine that she comes up with, but she teams up with a sleazeball porn magazine guy, and it's an interesting dynamic between the two main characters. I really like the main character, Doug, I think his name is that right, babe? I think his name is, I think his name is Doug, played by Jake Johnson. He's really good in this. The other thing I'll mention that might get people's attention, if you have HBO Max, there are a lot of dicks in this movie. Like, I'm sorry, in this show. There's a ton of dicks. Like, more dick in this show than any other show that I've seen dicks in. So It's a ton of stuff. There's a lot. It's a lot of fun. It's an interesting story. I hope they're going to get a season 2. I haven't looked into it much. I think they are, but yeah, check it out. It's called Minx, Minx, and it's got a cool soundtrack too. Of course, it's the 70s, so of course it does. But yeah, Minx. I think it's worth a watch. Check it out.
Great plug, babe. I really enjoyed watching this series with you. It was just something we randomly started watching one day. I think you put it on. Had you maybe heard about it beforehand, and that's why
I
you
had
put
heard
it
about
on?
it. There was
Okay.
talk about it, people liking it, and then two things: people liking it, and people are like, "Oh my god, there's a lot of dick in this show." I'm like, I'm in. I got to check it out.
Not only is there dick, there's fat guy dick. So if you like your chubs, there's chub dick in this show.
There's model dick and fat guy dick all over the place. Dick.
There's dick.
The two kinds.
Fireman dick. Yeah, all kinds.
Awesome plug. Thanks so much. My plug is also a TV show. Years ago, we used to have a TV companion podcast to this one called MBP TV, and Casey Scott and Steve Hassel. I love those guys so much, but schedules, difficulty, hard to get everybody together. We just kind of stopped doing MBP TV. But one of the shows that we had started watching kind of at the end of the run of that show was a Netflix show called Grace and Frankie. And so I had watched the first couple episodes of that show for the podcast just to see what we thought and kind of chat about it. And then I never really circled back to the series. Like, we were talking about other things and, but I don't know why I'm telling my whole life story, but recently I injured my back. I've been kind of laid up.
History of MBP TV.
I know, right? So anyway, I've been kind of laid up a little bit, and so I've just been looking for things to watch. And I was swiping through Netflix, and I saw Grace and Frankie because the final episodes were coming in like a week. And I was like, well, I never went back to this. Let me check it out. Going back to the third episode led to the fourth, to the fifth, to the sixth. I finished the first season in like a day and a half of watching the show. I'm into the second season now, and I'm completely hooked on this show. It is awesome. I know that funny comedy things are weird with me. We've talked about on the show many times how, I don't laugh at the things that normal people laugh at. I don't know what it is about the sensibilities of this show, but I find it highly amusing. It's really funny. It's very heartwarming. Jim, you mentioned 9 to 5. This has got Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin. No Dolly yet. Who knows if she'll appear in the final season that's coming out. That would be amazing. But they just have such a phenomenal chemistry. This show is the goods. It is so fantastic. I would totally rewatch what I have already watched, babe, if you want to go back and see if you can get into it. It's just phenomenal. So if you missed Grace and Frankie when it originally came out, or maybe you watched the first season but you never circled back to it, now is the time to come back. Final episodes are coming on the 29th of April. I don't think you have enough time to binge all 7 seasons. I don't know, maybe you do in a week, but you could certainly get a big head start and get on that train if you're looking for something fun to watch. Netflix has got it.
Yeah, Lily Tomlin. I think one of the reasons that I would like it, or I've seen an episode or two with you, but Lily Tomlin is great. Her sense of comedy, and she's got a really sharp wit. Like, she throws the barbs out. She's the one who throws the barbs out, and Jane is kind of more of a straight. She kind of plays a straight role. And feeds into Lily Tomlin's stuff. But yeah, I think that character dynamic is really interesting, and the supporting cast is great. We got Sam Waterston and
Martin Sheen.
Yeah. So yeah, that maybe is one we could go back and watch, and when we're in the show hole, kind of like we are now.
Yeah, definitely. Anytime you want, you just let me know. All right, everybody. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up for this week. Next week, we are going to be chatting the Northmen. Make sure to see that between now and next time we record, which will be well, this time next week, that being Tuesday evening Pacific time relative to when we record. But in case people want to talk more about movies or whatever between now and then, Jim, where can people find you online?
You can always find me talking movie stuff, mostly on Twitter at my handle at JJP at West, which is right here. You can see it. Well, I hate this reverse thing, but it's JJ at JJP out West. JJP are my initials, and then out West. And also on Facebook under my name, Jim Pugliafico. I'm always there scrolling through.
All right. Thanks so much, babe. Will Lindis, how about you, friend?
Let's see. You can find me on Twitter, on Instagram. Look for @whatevercove. Look for me on Facebook. My name there is William Lindis, just like it is in real life. You can also find me on letterboxd.com. I do a lot of reviews there as well. Just search for me by name. Give me a follow. I'll follow you back. And then check me out on TikTok. I'm at The Movie Bear.
All right, excellent. And you can find me on Facebook. Just look for Brad Harris. I'm the one who likely has Chub Chaser Bear friends in common with you. Please send a message before you friend request so that I know you are a real person. Let me know you're coming from the show. Excited to chat with you. You can also find me on Twitter and Letterboxd at iBradPro. Thanks so much for joining us, everybody. It was great having you, folks, James and Will, and everyone else who's joining us remotely from home or your commute or wherever you enjoy the show. Thanks, as always, for supporting us. This is episode 434 of the Movie Bears podcast. Never thought we'd get past episode 50, much less 400. But we're making our way toward 500, guys. We'll get there.
Wow.
Right around the corner. I mean, it will be there before we know it.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll be like, oh my God, 500. Are you kidding? Big number. That's a lot of movie talk right there.
It really is. If something were to happen to any of us, I take comfort in knowing that there are literally hundreds of hours of us recorded for posterity. So
not just posterity. That's like if there's ever a Black Mirror that does the whole thing where it like, oh, we can recreate their consciousness and their voice using. There's enough episodes where you can almost have like a full version of us.
That's scary, but also I'm intrigued. Yeah, that could be interesting. What would Robo Brad be like? Maybe he'd be less annoying. I don't know. We'll have to find out someday.
And since we've been shirtless on the show before, they could do shirtless Robo Brads. You know
what I mean?
Yeah,
that's true.
There we go. See, there's look, the future isn't all bad. That's what I'm saying.
All right, we're going to get out of here, everybody. It is clearly time. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see y'all next time. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.